Hey, everybody, this is Brent from The Second Look. I have the pleasure of speaking with Marcos Villarreal. Marcos, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Brett.
Thanks for your time. We just want to learn more about you and where you come from and what you're doing. So, the best place to start is the beginning. What got you on this path towards film?
Well, actually, it was like late in my career, quote unquote. I come from the Central Valley, California, so it's nothing but farmlands. Especially at the time when I was going to high school, I think the only thing we had was like yearbook club, so nothing filmmaking related at all. But I just remember growing up, like my older brother would always show me movies. My dad would take me to the movies. My mom would show movies here. So that was like my first introduction to like the film world. It was like far beyond my scope. It was just like, oh, that's something I can do, right? But there was this YouTube channel back in the late 2000s, Freddie Wong. He's from USC. He would make all these great VFX like shorts every week. And I was like, oh,
Yeah,
that's so cool. I want to do something similar to like that. So
yeah.
I saved up money for a summer job and I bought a camcorder and I would just do little skits with like my niece and nephew and stuff like that just for fun. I was like, oh, this is great. Then went to community college and then transferred to a 4U university. And I would say changed my major at least 10 times before like I got into the current major when I moved up to Humboldt State. I was a poli-sci major. So that was my path, is going to politics, and then started pursuing that heavily, got into clubs, started canvassing for a congressman up there. And then for halfway through the semester, I was like, this doesn't feel right. I don't like this at all. So I had a really good talk with my best friend. She's like, why don't you do something in like film? You like recording stuff all the time. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. So let's see if this school has a film program. They did. So I switched my major to the next semester and fell in love with it ever since. So I was like,
Mm,
I never looked back. And then
mhm.
from there, just kept pursuing it, made really good friends up at the film school. And then me and a couple of friends moved down to LA, trying to do the LA thing, and ended up working network television. I'm kind of going like the shortcut route of this story, and now I have my own production company now
Okay.
that I'm trying to build up and run on my own,
Wow.
and with
Okay.
one of my friends who's my main DP for a lot of my short films.
Okay. That's awesome. That's a great story. The starting late thing, I think, is not uncommon, especially for someone. It sounds like people maybe in the same situation where finding the passion, like finding the thing that where you're supposed to go, what you're supposed to do. For some people, it's instant. For some people, it takes some trial and error. I know just from my own experience, I really like editing. And when I was in school, editing my own shorts and stuff, like that was my favorite part of the process, right? But then I got a job at a company that handled mostly commercials editing, did some features here and there, maybe a
Mhm.
music video here and there, but mostly commercials. And just working there, seeing what it was like being a professional editor for commercials, at least,
Yeah.
that it was like okay, now I know what that is, and that now I know that that's not really what I want to do.
Right.
You
Okay.
kind of have to like go down these paths a little bit just to make sure that it clicks. And it sounds like you found it and now
Yeah.
it clicked. That's great.
I know. Like, I wish I found it sooner, but all the previous like majors I ever like majored in, it helped build to be the filmmaker I am now. And
Sure.
especially in the filmmaking world, there's so many different departments, and just my time in network television, I got to like speak to a lot of department heads. So when I got into LA, and the only reason why I got into network television is because the people I networked in my film school,
Mm.
they're the ones that had the foot in the door, do the hard work that they did in college. And I got my opportunity. They're like, hey, there's a position opening up in the production office. We just need someone to build IKEA stuff. Are you down? I'm like, yeah, sign me up. And then it just like blossomed out there. So without the people I met in film school, I would never been in the position I was in
Mm.
these big TV shows.
Mm.
And
That's
yeah,
yeah. That's that's also a very very common experience that people. I think everybody's got something like that, right? Everybody's got something where they knew somebody that led them to this, and like a connect the dots kind of thing. And I like what you said about getting offered a job to put together IKEA furniture,
a lot of IKEA furniture. I
right?
became a pro by IKEA building.
Which is like a life skill now you have, and
Yeah.
no, but like I I think I've heard this a few times that same story where it's like someone offered me to do this and it's not the thing that I want to do, right? You're not trying to become a professional IKEA builder,
Right. Yeah.
right? There was I think it was a sound designer that I met once and had a kind of interview with, and she explained, yeah, like I was basically the janitor at a place at a
Pretty
production
much.
company,
Yeah.
and she's like, I need a job. I'll take it. And she did. And then she's working there. She's meeting people. She's kind of picking up little things about how to do that, how to do sound. They let her work on the side, on weekends or whatever, till it kind of like, and then suddenly she's an Academy Award winning sound designer, like
Yeah.
the lesson here is don't turn your nose up at some job that you think is beneath you or whatever, because everything, if it's connected in any way, it's going to lead to something.
Exactly. And you have to be hungry for it. Like when me and my friends moved down to LA, like it's all new for us. Like we didn't know where to go. I had a job that entered the year prior that summer and it was doing film transfers. So I was getting like Betacam, Betamax, DVs, mini DVs, and it's mostly like family footage and putting them into a CD. And I'm like, I was there for like a couple months and I was like, this is not what I came out here to do. So I made a big risk. I was like, okay, I have to quit this job and put myself out there to find any production gigs I can get my hands on, whether it's paid or not. So that's mostly what I did when I moved my first like year in LA. After 3 months, I was like, okay, this is not for me. I need to be bold and risk. And risk is like terrifying for some people. I agree because like you have no idea like when's your next paycheck or if you can get paid on this production at all. And there's been plenty of times where I worked on like gigs and it was like, oh yeah, we'll pay you. And never got the money. But I didn't take that as like a loss. I was like, okay, that's a learning experience. But I learned a lot from whoever was directing at that time, whoever was DPing, whoever around me, and how like a set was run compared to like film school. You get the logistics. My film school was very small. We had about maybe 14 people that graduated in my film class.
Mm-hmm.
So very small. So we wore a lot of hats, very independent. Like my senior capstone, I think we only got like $100 for our senior project. So
Wow.
that went to just crafty. But yeah,
The
it's
most,
just being hungry and just chasing everything you can get your hands on,
yeah,
whether it comes with pay or not, because you'll gain a lot of experience and you make a lot of the connections that way as well.
yes, yes. Taking free jobs when you can. I'll always say yes, right? It's only better. It's only going to make things better. You're going to meet a new person on that set. They're going to like what you do, and if you work hard and if you're nice and you're a good worker, like they're going to bring you on to the next one. So, yeah. But I want to go back. I also really like what you said about recognizing when you did take a job that wasn't that, and then you're self-aware enough to know, like, this is not really going to work, and being able to extract yourself from that and try something else. Because yes, take any job, be the janitor or do IKEA furniture. It also recognize that if it's 2 years in and you're still the janitor and nothing's happening, like you're not going to pursue, you're not going
Yeah.
to grow out of this, then it's time, so you got to take the risk, like you said. And then you did some set construction, right?
Yeah, so after that job, we're doing all these transfers and like whatever. I worked on a few music videos, small productions here, and one of my good friends that I went to community college here in my hometown, he ended up getting his master's in cinematography at USC. And I was just at his house doing art color grade for my last film I did last year. So it's at the end process of things. But he brought me on a small like it was a pilot he was working on when he was at Northridge. So I go down, I was his first AC, helping him do all this stuff. So the director noticed, director noticed me. He's like, hey, like a couple of months later, he calls me. He's like, hey, I saw you're just killing it out there. You're just like, you're active. So like,
Mm-hmm.
there's a small studio. I need someone to help me build set construction. So I was like, yeah, sure. At this time, I was living kind of tip of Orange County, and where this studio was in Northridge. So it was a 2 hour drive there and a 2 hour drive back. I
Yeah.
did that for a little over a year. So I was just helping this guy build sets for a sitcom, multicam sitcom, and it's just long hours,
Mm-hmm.
just moving a bunch of stuff, building stuff, which is fun. And then I get a phone call from my friend in Humboldt that network, and like we worked on projects together. She's like, "Hey, this show called Snowfall. We just need you for a couple of days to build IKEA stuff." I was like, "Sweet, sign me up. I'll build IKEA stuff all day."
Mm-hmm.
So I go there, meet the production coordinator, start building. That 2 days led into a week, and then from there, like, okay, that's all we need. Thank you. And then I go back to the site construction. A month later passes, and then I get a call from the coordinator. She's like, "Hey, we really liked you. Would you want to come on as a production office assistant?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. Give you this." I never heard of the show before, right? This is my first time ever heard of the show.
Yeah.
I was like, "Yes, sign me up. That sounds cool." So get on, and then realize like, oh, this is a full blown like big TV show.
Mm-hmm.
So I got in there as a production assistant, doing lunch runs, just setting up table reads, just the stuff to you, doing paperwork, filing paperwork away. We get crew memos. I have to use this program called Synchronize and then implement it on there. So it's a lot of organizing and just learning how the back end works,
Yeah.
which I never got in film school too much,
Right.
right? I never got the big end, like especially at that level. And then I just made sure, and since going to community college, my part-time job was I was a front desk clerk at a hotel. So I was answering a lot of phone calls. That helped me with the film world because you're talking to so many people nonstop every day. There's a phone ringing with a question. And that's what I made sure to, in my end, is like, I made sure to answer the phone. I was the first one to answer the phone. Like, "Hey, Marcos, how can I help you?"
Mm.
So in that way, I got to meet every pretty much important department heads. Like, "Hey, I'm looking for this sheet, or I'm looking for the coordinator, or yada yada. What have we questions?" So I was the one to like go in, but I made sure every morning or every day, by the phone, if the phone rings, I'm the first one to pick it up. And then halfway through the season, the line producer assistant, she was going back to a different show, Shameless, and so they needed another line producer. So they hired someone, and then she ended up not working out after a week, and so they're like, "We got to find someone." And so I interviewed for the position,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think I was going to get it right. This is my first big network show. I'm not
Yeah.
sure what I'm doing half the way. My resume is garbage. I go into this interview. I remember talking to the production supervisor. At this time, I started making friends with all of them, with everyone there. Started chit-chatting with everybody, getting friendly because, again, the only person I knew was the friend that got me the job. So I was like, all right, I got to like expand my network here and not be a shy introvert, which I was. So I had to be a forceful extrovert.
Yeah.
But I remember the interview. Well, I was like, I might not get it, but might as well interview for the position. It's been a while
Sure.
since I've been interviewed.
Sure.
And so I go in there, and the best thing I came up was like, I'm going to take it as like Jon Snow. When he was trying to go outside the wall, but he became like the assistant to it. So they're like, "Why do you want to do?" I was like, "I'm just gonna be like Jon Snow." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" It was like, when Sam said, like, "Look, dummy, like you're gonna be in all these important meetings, just take the assistant job." I was like, that's how I'm looking at it. It's like I'm gonna be in these meetings and like learn.
Yeah.
And so that kind of led into me becoming the next line producer halfway through the season. So which was cool, but I gotta say I learned a lot from a lot of these meetings that I was taken to. I was like, whoa, I would never ever saw this if I just like, no, I'm good.
Yeah. That's that's great. No, I mean, from what you're saying, it's very clear. You're driven. You have a work ethic that people recognize and respond to right away, and they remember you and they call you back. I think these are really important qualities because everybody is trying to get your job, and everyone's trying to move up, and everyone's there's a lot of competition in all of those roles. Everyone answering phones is trying to do more than answer phones. So I think for me the lesson here is answer the phone first. That's a really good tip, honestly. Like that's just that one little like extra 10% more than people would do. Like they're I'm just at work, I'm bored or whatever. But no, you took it as an opportunity and it paid off, sounds like. So
Yeah, and again, like as a production office assistant, there's not a lot going on when there's slow time. So you'll have hours of just like going through paperwork and just clerical work. So it gets boring. So it's nice
right.
when someone calls you like, "Hey, what's going on? What do you do?" "Okay." "Oh, you work with the transport department?" "Okay. What do you need? How can I help you?"
Okay, so I guess in film school, but also since then, have you've been making your own work, right?
Yeah. So when I was working on these network television shows, I was also on the weekends. I had another part-time job working at Universal Studios in catering.
Mm.
So that was like my downtime. So with all the chaos of of the film world in network television, Saturday or Sunday, I'll have a 6-hour job just serving catering to like these big companies that rent out the theme park for like their company theme party or whatever.
Okay.
If I wasn't doing that, I was helping being a second shooter on weddings. If I wasn't doing that, I was doing my own photography. If I wasn't doing that, I was making my own short films with the friends I met down there, or trying to get some kind of project going. So it was nonstop. I would say I was working 7 days a week, 24 hours pretty much, it seems like.
Wow. Yeah.
But now after that, and like when COVID hit, there was not a lot of work.
Mm.
I became a COVID officer for a Disney show, and then left that, and then just started like, all right, I got to figure something out. And then came back again for another couple of shows for an HBO show and a Netflix show. The last show was an HBO show called Made for Love I was on. And then I left and I was like, all right, I got to figure this out. I'm tired of being an assistant. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, how do I move the needle? And I was like, all right, I need to gather what I learned. I think I can do my own production company. So I started almost 3 years ago. It's a slow start, but slowly I'm getting the ball rolling. I produced 3 short films last year. One of them went to a semifinalist for LA Indie Short Fest. So that was cool. And then this one, I'm just finishing the color I shot last summer. And then I helped another actress do another short for her. It was to get the rest off because she's going to direct a bigger project. I'm going to be her first AD next month. So yeah, so it's just trying to find people to collab with or pay out of pocket kind of stuff for all these films.
Okay. Yeah. So now we're in the production company now. This is called Wheatfield and Crows, right?
Yes, correct.
Tell me. Well, I want to talk a lot about it. So let's take our time here because it's interesting because I think a lot of filmmakers these days, they have this idea that I'll just make my own stuff, or I'll help other people make their own stuff, or I'll start a production company to facilitate, making my own stuff. But maybe people, if they have those ideas, maybe they don't really understand kind of the steps. So if you wouldn't mind, talk us through like what's the first thing you do when you start a production company?
It's been a long time. This is the 3rd time I'm trying to start this up, mind you. So again, when I moved down with a couple of friends, we're trying to start a production company. It fizzled out, right? It's fine. So, and then when I got onto the network show, I started another production or try to start another production with another group of friends. Fizzled out as well. So this is my 3rd time. So I was like, okay, I learned from my past mistakes from there. But it's literally just like, it's hard because like it's not something like I really planned. I was like, okay, this is what I need to do first. Get people who are interested, but then you like, it doesn't work out, and which is fine. And then you're like, all right, how do I come back from this? How do I adjust? Or so for me, it's like, as much as I know like how to build a budget and get all this production stuff and what departments does what's, like from my time in network television, it was pretty much what's the business side of it. Mm-hmm. So there are, for California, there's called a SBDC, and a small business program. They do free webinars for like how to start a business, how to get an LLC, and all that. So I did that for like months on end. It was just doing webinar after webinar, trying to learn how to build a business from the ground up. So I guess that's would be the first start. But if you don't want to do that route, you don't really need an LLC. It's just more of a liability when you start working with more people, and then you get more equipment, and like that's something you might want to look. But now you just work as a sole proprietor, and it's totally fine. But since I'm trying to want to start this as a business and do it right and have like taxes and stuff like that, I had to make sure I'm protected too.
Yeah.
On the back end, because like on film sets, anything can happen.
Yeah.
Anything can go wrong at any point. It's nice to have that extra layer of protection. But after that, I was like, okay, so I don't know too many writers. I'll write my script, even if it's bad. I'll just write it and then film it. And then I'll cast a friend of mine. It's like, hey, can you be an actor for me? Cool. And then it leads to, all right, how do I get like more little professional actors? Are there websites to do casting calls? Do I do a casting call on Facebook or go to a local film community to do casting call? What I use a lot is Backstage. when I got quite a few actors. But luckily enough, I had people in my circle of time in LA. It was like, yeah, I'll act, I'll donate my time. And then just building that foundation. He was like, all right, let me get all these films so I have like a good chunk of work. Now my next step is like, let me make a website and put all my work on there.
Mhm.
How do I want to frame my website? Like for me, my production company really focused on independent filmmakers. Again, because I feel like there's a stigma with filmmaking. It's like, oh, there's so much that goes on. But if you have someone that could guide you in the process, it's not as scary as one person might think it might be. So I think that's where I come in as a producer and someone who's like, I want to make a film. I just don't know where to start. It's like, here, let's start from the ground up. And it's like,
Mhm.
you have a story idea? Let's write a script. You don't know how to write a script? Just tell me and I'll write it for you. And then we can go from there. And then slowly start building that as a pre-production. Because I think pre-production very, very, very vital. The more you know, the more less pivots you have to move during production.
Yeah, totally. Okay. So your business is focused on you're setting it up so that you can do your own projects, right? But you're also providing like support, mentorships, or you're supporting other filmmakers who want to put a project together. You're helping them do the budgets, right? You're doing
Correct.
you have do you own equipment that you loan out to these productions?
I rent out equipment, or so I'm partnered with my DP that has his equipment stuff. But when it comes to like lenses, I'll rent the lenses out. I'll rent the lenses out. I go back and forth from LA to the Central Valley a lot because I'm home based in the Central Valley now.
Okay.
So I'll rent lenses from LA or gear in LA. I'll go drive down, bring them back, shoot, use the lenses, and then next day take them back to LA to drop them
Okay.
off. And that's again with a budget. And I try to keep these short films under $1,200 if possible. Again, I can work with a bigger budget, but my main focus is to get films made by local creatives that just want to make films or just want to be creative and don't know where to start as. So that's where I come in. I was like, it's possible. Let me guide you through it. Even I have to throw some of my own money into the pot. That's fine. Or if you have like $800 or $600, we can work with that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want anyone to feel like they can't make a film because of the constraints they think that they need.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of right. So many questions about like how am I going to do this? How do I have this idea, I've written it in my script, but then it's a big question, like a big problem solving exercise of how to actually deal with that or how to actually turn that into a shot and get that on camera. Um, and budget is a really prohibitive for a lot of people, but as you've probably picked up from your experience, there's all kinds of tricks. There's all kinds of workarounds and hacks that you can use to actually get something decent for little to no money. So I imagine that is a big value to the people you're working with.
Yeah. And another thing too is like if someone has like a big grand idea, my job is to like, yeah, we can do that. It's like, no, we can't do that because that's not in the budget or the logistics of it doesn't plan out. So like my job is to bring them in and like, all right, let me bring you to reality and what we can achieve, what we have here. And I try to like with every director or any creative I work with, it's like, I know you want this. I'm gonna try to give it to you, but if we can't, this is our other options.
Okay. Right. Yeah, because you're not a miracle worker. You
Yeah.
can't just conjure up 1,000 extras or something.
Yeah.
And I imagine you're also learning yourself from these other filmmakers that they come in. Like they might have something to an idea or a way of shooting it or anything that you're also learning from. So then it's just this kind of feedback loop of like experience and knowledge and all.
Exactly. And then it goes back to like get on as much sets as possible and just pay attention to what people are doing. Like look at the director. Do you think what the director is doing is that seem like it's going well? Or man, that's a dumpster fire over there. Do not do that. So I learned a lot of that in my time in LA and just jumping on project to project and just watching and just like really paying attention to what people do. I was like, okay, this is going well. I'm going to use that when I start my own film or whatever. Or that's terrible. I'm never going to do what that person did. So it's a very learning experience.
Hmm.
And one of my mentors told me, he's like, be the dumbest person in the room. If you don't know anything, ask a question when the time is right, when people are not like
Yes.
anxiety and trying to get the next shot. Just pay attention to what's going on in the room, and just be like, okay, this is cool. It's like, I don't know why that person's doing that. So when they have free time, I'm going to go, it's like, hey, so why do you
Mhm.
do this thing? And you learn a lot from like people who are experts in their field.
Yes. Yes. And I think you'll find that as you, or as someone watching will find that you're there, you're watching other people do their job. You're curious about what they're doing and how they're doing it or why they're doing it. You go up and talk to them. They're happy to answer because chances are they were in your shoes,
Mm-hmm.
5, 10, 20 years before, and they know what that's all about. I think they're, it depends on who you talk to, but I think there's a pretty good passing of the torch, passing
Yeah.
the knowledge down from people, because I think we're all aware that this is a tough business. Getting into it, learning it, it's a
Trial by
job.
fire, pretty much.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, all right,
exactly.
figure it out.
Yeah, and the only way, like, you can read books, you can go,
It'll make
you,
it go so long.
right.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have to get your hands on set. And
One thing I would say that I found very like imperative of like my learning is like the way I picture it is like I'm on this level. I'm always trying to get to the next level of learning of like what people do or like my craft, right? And sometimes I don't have the questions to get access to the level. So when I'm talking to someone that has like more experience to me, it's like, what are the questions I'm not asking that you can provide me?
mm,
And I find that a lot of people are like, oh, that's a good question. Well, you didn't talk about how logistics works on like when it's raining, or you didn't talk about this, you didn't ask about this. And then it goes into a rabbit hole of questions you had no idea you know, and
yeah.
then that levels up your knowledge.
I think that's an excellent tip. Yeah, great question to ask, because yeah, if chances are you have an idea of an answer when you're asking a question, you kind of have an idea. You just maybe want to confirm it, but yeah, the stuff that you don't even know to ask. That's good. That's really good. Okay, so what happens after? I mean, I was checking out the website for your company. So you're doing music videos, you're doing commercials, you're doing short films. Are those? Let's start with like commercials. Are those? These are who's bringing commercials to you? Are you getting hired by like agencies?
It's me just a foot to ground
Okay.
talking to people like, hey, like again, I mostly focus on filmmaking. I'm trying to expand into commercials and music videos. I do have like a handful of those, but I'm trying to get more of those. So it's mostly me going to like businesses like, hey, this is a service I provide. This is what I can offer. Let's talk. And again, you get shut down a lot until you get one person who's like, yeah, let's do it. So it's just being persistent and just not giving up, just going door to door
Mm.
pretty much at this point. And then sometimes I'll like, I'll do this first one for free, because everything right now I do if I don't have a crew with me, it's me. I have my own camera, so I go out and shoot. I do all my audio stuff,
Mm.
and editing as well. But if I do have a crew, perfect. Let's work on my end, which is nice.
Sure. Okay. So you're literally going door to door, essentially offering your services, and like you said, it seems like maybe 9 out of 10 say no, thank you, but that one says yes, and like that leads to another one with them,
Yes.
or now it's something on your reel that you can show to the next person, the next company, or whatever.
Yeah, it's the best way I can put it is I'm trying to plant seeds for
Mm.
it to blossom down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it does blossom, I have more flowers to cultivate.
That's great. That's great. So what's next? Are we thinking like a feature film? Is it
Yes. So that's
one
my
more product?
my next goal is to produce or direct a feature film. So I wrote a feature film a couple months ago. I have to do a rewrite, but I have all these other projects, so it's hard to like find time to get back into the feature film writing
Yeah.
style.
Yeah.
Again, I was never a good writer, but I was like, okay, like I have to do it because, like, again, it's so hard to find writers to write a feature film, or if they have a feature film, I don't have the money to buy the rights for it. So I
Mm.
was like, okay, let me just do it. Let me write it, even if it's like bad or whatever. I'll get feedback, but as long as I have something that I'm able to do myself, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. You can tell me as much about it as you want if you don't want to share too much, but I'm just curious, knowing what you know, your experience, what's possible. Sounds like you're very attuned to what is possible, what's in a budget, how to use that money wisely. How does that inform your writing? Because now you know you're trying to write something that you can actually produce.
Big time. As far as my rating, big time. I'm like, okay, do I mostly it's outside? I'll find places where like I can get access to. So like say if I need a warehouse. So my feature film is a mobster esque kind of film, kind of like Casino.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, I can get access to a warehouse. My dad works on a farm and there's a warehouse there. I have access to that.
Nice.
Then I'll look, it's like, oh, can I get an antique store? Well, there's an antique store downtown. If I just go in, talk to them, I probably can get that. Even if it like, especially at a small town, there's a lot of stuff you can like talk and get a location for very,
Right.
very cheap or for free, you know?
Yeah.
Another way I go about it too, if I go in there, it's like, hey, I'm doing this movie, even if it's a short film. I was like, I would love to use your establishment. Is there any way I can use it? If there's a possible way I can you can use my service free of charge, like a trade off. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you need a commercial that way, then mostly it's like, oh no, it's fine. You can use our restaurant. So it's just finding the time and day of like, are they going to be busy or are they going to be off that day? So it's just finding those kind of locations. Like, are they busy? Are they a busy location? When's their like the close hours? So I can shoot in the closing hours. And so just staying grounded and see what I can get. And if anything, just pivot to something or change the location.
Uh,
So I would say be well aware of what you can get away with, especially if you have a really, really small budget.
yeah. Well, I really like that. I love the. This is something that I think about all the time, and it just works. Just ask, like, just just pose a question. You go up to a business or a warehouse or I don't know, whoever you need to ask, right? You go up to them and you just say, hey, like, here's what I'm doing. Be professional, be polite. Be very welcoming and don't make it seem so serious.
Yeah, yeah.
But just ask. I mean, it's amazing. I've had like it's amazing what I've been able to who I've been able to connect with or favors or anything like. It's just like what's the worst that's gonna happen? They're gonna say no, right? That's it. That's the the worst case scenario is they're gonna say no. And okay, you pivot, you find an alternative solution, you change the script, you figure it out. It's just another creative problem that you have to or a problem that you have to creatively solve, right?
Exactly.
But that's the name of the game. But sometimes you just ask and they say yes. And it's like amazing, like
Like,
how easy it is to make that happen for yourself. And really in any facet of your life, not just in filmmaking, but
yeah,
just
just in general.
in general.
Yeah,
Like it's just amazing. So for me, that's one of the number one things I like to share with people is that idea that if you just ask, it's really not a big deal, and then great things happen.
exactly.
Well, that's awesome. I like the sound of your idea. I think it sounds like you're putting it together in a way that's smart because it's doable, it's practical, and that's how it's going to get done. And then your first feature film is like in the can, right? Like in the
Yeah. And
and
then it
then
just snowballs from there,
it's just yeah.
hopefully.
No, totally, totally. Curious about your experiences with like film festivals and getting your work seen. I know that's this is also something that people today are. I mean, it's always been a struggle, but today the challenge is there's too much. There's too much. There's too many outlets. There's so much online. So even though we can just put something on YouTube, getting
Right.
someone to see it
See
is
it.
not very easy. So how have you navigated that?
So prior to this, like I shot short films. It was to the point where like I was thought like I'm not gonna submit anything, right? Like it was just like it's not good enough. It's not good enough. So until I started this business, I was like I need to get it out there no matter what. Like whatever I make, I need it out. So The first movie I produced last year, I was talking to the director, his first time director, but big movie buff. Like he knows what his movie stuff. Like I'm
Oh,
not a movie buff per se. I do like movies, but he has the books. He reads a lot, and so I was like, okay, like let's make a movie together.
yeah.
So we made a movie. I was like, all right, we're gonna submit it to a few film festivals. And this is new to me, right? So this is still a learning curve on my end that I gotta like get. But again, it's just like figuring it out at this point. So the first film festival I submitted to, I was like, oh, this looks great. It's in Seattle, and without me really knowing, it was a scam festival. So I got scammed, but luckily I got my money back through Film February. I was like, hey, this is a scam festival. There's no, and I should have done more research on the festival itself.
Mm,
So that's really, really big important for any people who are trying to look at film festivals on Film February. Make sure that they're legit and make sure they're close enough where you can go. So that's another big thing. So now I mostly submit to festivals in LA. I resubmitted that film to a couple other places. It didn't get in one. It got in the second one. I was like, okay, this is cool. It was like it got picked, and then like a week, 2 later, it's like, all right, you're a semifinalist. I was like, oh, sweet. Okay, so like it got traction. So that was nice. So it's just figuring out, and then just looking at the festivals and see if your film matches that festival, and also looking at your local community too. Like in the Central Valley, there's a local group called the Fresno Alliance Filmmakers, and there's a lot of people who exchange the film on there. There's a program in Fresno that I went to a networking event last Friday, and they're like, "Oh well, we're getting like a get together social with all like local filmmakers. Also, if you want to submit any of your films, we will show it there at our place, at our studio." So a lot of young filmmakers came and showed their films, and it was great. And it was like, okay, so look at your local film
mm,
community and see if there's anything like that there. If not, start one like what you're doing here, but hopefully on a bigger scale.
yeah, that's awesome. The the local film community thing is so cool to me. Uh, it's I think, and I don't know if it's just me and what I've been noticing, but it feels like there's a lot more of that lately,
Yes.
and it's so great to see. Maybe it's a lot easier to organize those things because of social media and whatnot. But yeah. Okay, I want to go back real quick. Research your festivals, make sure, because I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand or don't even know to be aware of when they're starting, is like sometimes they just set up, some fake thing.
Yeah, so fake.
They take submissions, they charge because they know that filmmakers, those who are just getting started, and they're just so excited to submit to any festival, and if they get it, you accept them, like they're taking advantage of that
Exactly.
enthusiasm and that, like, that kind of naive, say, innocent, like, I just want to show my film, and that's really heartbreaking when that kind of happens. So definitely pay attention to that stuff. I love that idea that you said, like, if it's local or if it's close enough that you can go to it
Good.
and
Yeah. So
check it
like
out. And
it's actually showing it. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, not even for one, step
Right.
one,
Yeah.
yeah, is this a legit thing? And you can see it for yourself. Two, maybe attend the festival.
That's huge. So when I was in LA, anytime I see a film festival popped up, I would go and watch these film festivals. They'll pop up around LA a lot. So I was like, okay,
Mm,
let me go to this film festival,
yeah.
see, check it out, watch some films. So I'll watch like a block of films. I was like, okay, cool. So on the 15th, I'll be in LA. There's a film festival I'm going. So I have an all day pass and like with Q&A and stuff like that. So that's what this couple weekends from now I'll be out in LA watching some films, some short films.
um, Attending is great. You're gonna see what other people are doing. You're gonna, like, I like also what you said about kind of knowing what the festival looks for. Does your content match what they want to show? If it's a genre thing, or maybe it's a, I don't know, just a quality thing. If you go to a festival and you see, like, I don't know, if you go to Sundance and you see all these films that have real, serious budgets and things, that or if it's way off in content wise, your chances are lower. So kind of aligning yourself with that festival. I also recommend working for the festival if you can. If it's close enough, if it's local enough, they're always looking for volunteers.
Yes.
Again, it's one of those maybe unpaid jobs that are going to pay you in dividends later because you're going to meet people, you're going to have connections, you're going to um, all good things come out of that. But then, yeah, the last thing about just that community kind of setting something, start your own film festival. Just, again, just ask who's around, who has films. Go to, this is something kind of when COVID hit, like in the theaters were really hurting. You could rent out an actual theater.
Yeah.
You could pay $200 or whatever it was. You charge people $5 to get in. You show a bunch of films, and suddenly you've made a film festival. You've created that for yourself and for everyone around you. So
Or get like a $60 projector, get a sheet, go in your backyard, invite people. It's like, hey, you got films, so we'll show it in my backyard. Like, we'll get
exactly.
something started.
And I like this. I like where this is going. For people who have made a film but never shown it to a group of people at once, I think that is such an experience for the filmmaker, because you send a link to your friend and they watch it on their own and they talk to you and they give you some feedback. Okay, you show it on your laptop to your parents and they like it, right? But there's nothing like showing your work to a group of people, especially strangers, at the same time. It's an accomplishment. It's a fulfilling experience. You get that feedback from the audience watching your stuff. Then that's why they do test screenings, right? Like
Yes. Yeah. That's
there's
very important.
there's a lot you can learn
You're
from.
like, wow, that wasn't an intended laugh I wasn't expecting to get, but it nailed it. So perfect. I loved it.
Yeah, right. Because I think as filmmakers, but especially, maybe a screenwriter or it's just kind of isolated the work. And you're in your head, it's a great idea and this is awesome and it's going to be great. But really the final test is, does it play for an audience? Do they get it? Are they laughing in the right places? Are they not? And you start to, suddenly you're watching it through their eyes and you're getting, I don't know, it can't be understated
Yeah,
how.
it's a great experience to say the least. Yeah, you're like, wow, okay, this is actually people are vibing with this, and if they're
Yeah.
not, they're like, okay, then I know where I need to work on.
Yeah, right. It's all good experience. Even
Yeah,
if your film is not up to par or it's not as good as you thought, what you're going to get out of showing it to people, and it's tough. That is an ego.
very vulnerable position. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that is you bearing your soul for a bunch of strangers, and with your work, it's like it's the equivalent of someone who's like scared of public speaking or something, getting up
yeah,
and talking. Like, it's that same kind of vulnerability, but I think it's good to work through that, especially if you want to be a filmmaker.
yeah,
You have to get used to putting yourself out there like that.
yeah. It's very huge. Like again, growing up in Central Valley, it was very introverted. It wasn't until like later in my 20s I was like, okay, I need to not be shy anymore, which is a hard transition, right? It was like, how do I not be shy? Like, but it's just talking to people slowly and like getting to know them, and then questions happen. They get to know people, they get to know you, and then you develop this like camaraderie with it, especially with other artists too. And seeing other artists work, you're like, oh, I love your work. I love what you're doing with whatever medium it is, you know. I think it's a very bonding situation when you're with familiar people and you're just trying to create art, or you're just trying to create something that. And what I really love about filmmaking, it's like every art combined into one piece, you know, which is fun for me.
Yeah.
And from getting an idea into screen, just it's just
Yeah.
beautiful to me.
Yeah, totally. The act of creation is something that didn't exist, and now you've brought it to life. There's nothing better for me, for sure.
Yeah, and that's pretty much with my company, with my company name Wheatfield and Crows. It's based off Van Gogh's painting Wheatfield with Crows. And as much I really love Van Gogh, and not as much as like, oh, he was a great artist and whatnot, is he just never gave up. He kept doing what he loved and he kept pursuing it no matter the like stigma on him or people's like, oh, your stuff is not art. He's just like, you know what? I don't care what you say. I'm doing this. I'm keep pushing forward.
That's
I
great.
like doing this. I'm gonna keep doing it. So that's my company is based off
Mm,
his last painting.
love that. Love that. Yep. Love the ethos, the philosophy there, because and it totally lines up with everything you've said already. That's you to a T. So that's it's perfect. Well, Marcos, thank you so much for your time and sharing all of this great information with us. I'm very happy to hear it. I'm very excited for you. I want the best for you and the company. I'm happy to see it grow. We'll put everything, the website and all that information in the
And
description
yeah,
and
thank
everything.
you for having me on and thank you for getting this started, especially because like again, being a young filmmaker, you have no idea where to start or like the questions you need to ask. And so it's always nice. And like myself, I was a YouTube university checking at everyone, like, how do I learn this stuff? So I think it's nice to get a lot of different perspective of a lot of different filmmakers and where they're at in their careers. And if they're still in network television or some kind of like creative, like bigger end, or if they left or whatnot, it's
Mhm.
just a learning experience altogether.
Totally. Yeah. The the different perspectives thing, it's like totally essential because everybody who has gotten anywhere in this industry or in this pursuit went in through a different path. And I think it's important for people to understand that there is no one path. There's nothing like you can just sign up for this and I'll be gold. You have to kind of carve your own path. And I think hearing from people like you will just reinforce that idea that they have to do it for themselves. So again, thank you for sharing that with us. And yeah, we'll stay in touch and have a great night.
You too. Thank you so much for having me on again. Really
Thanks.
appreciate it. Talking to you.
All right. Bye. Yay.